So you see, this beauty of Amazonia has existed for more than 30 million years. And the indigenous peoples are very aware of the age of, all the life with them, which has developed there. And it is a space which they share with the other living beings. That is not just a space for them. And it's so rich of what we call biodiversity, so many different living beings in this Amazon forest, and what goes with the forest. It's a very beautiful space, and we will see later that the indigenous peoples, as part of their spirituality, know very well to connect to this beauty and to observe very well. I must say, at the times when I'm coming from Lima, a huge town with nearly 11 million people now, a lot of cement, little green. It's a town practically in the desert, dusty. When I come to the Amazon, it touches me deeply, because when you are entering into the rainforest, you feel deeply the majesty of nature there. Nature in all its strength and vitality. And that we are small when we stand in front of this wonder of life, which is there. And there is not only a lot of biodiversity, as we call it, there are many different cultures. It's rich of different cultures, peoples who try to see how to live within this space and live together. Sometimes struggle, but people who live close to the rivers, for example, are people who are not indigenous. They have come from other regions of the country of Peru, but they have allowed themselves to be inspired by the cosmovision and spirituality of the indigenous peoples. And so they also encourage us to learn how to be people who guard for the caring and guard and care for the Amazon region, which is so much threatened right now. And in the Amazon, in the whole Amazon part, in Peru, 63% of our whole national territory is Amazon region. There are living about 400 indigenous peoples altogether, Peru and the other parts of the Amazon in other countries, with their own cultural identities, their own practices in relating to Earth, and practices of daily living in the territory and with the territory. And that is already one so important part of their spirituality. The territory, the space where you live, you have received it from your ancestors, and they have learned to respect it. So you have to learn how to live with all what is in this territory. And that means to care for life there, and not just to exploit it for your own good, not thinking about the other living beings and what it means, what you do, how the impact is on the others. And we know, and they also know, that the Amazon biome plays a very fundamental role in global water cycles. And the indigenous peoples are collaborating with scientists who are very respectful, who will not exploit the knowledge of the indigenous peoples. And these scientists have, through research, proven more and more how extremely important the Amazon region is, not only for Latin America, but for the climate in the whole world, because of the wonderful water cycles and how they contribute to rainfalls and the necessary rainfalls and enough of rain in many other places. And until now, still, though it is reducing the percentage, but it is an enormous carbon sink, the whole rainforest. And that is a tremendous service nature is giving to us. But as we are affecting it more and more, in several places, it already turns around. That by the deforestation and the impacts it has on the whole ecosystem, in those parts, then the rainforest begins to also emit carbon, and instead of really absorbing it. So that also shows how important it is, and that indigenous peoples know when you care for nature, nature also will care for you. But this demands a mutual respect. And so Amazonia is really very close to a dangerous tipping point, and that is still not known enough and also not taken seriously enough in many parts of the world right now. One of my colleagues, whom I appreciate very much, he works in Uruguay. He is a researcher for decades. He works together with indigenous peoples. Only a few months ago, he published a book, and he shows how serious the situation of the Amazon is in different parts of this vast area, that they are at the tipping point. There is now a great alert, because it seems that those researchers who had made the hypothesis that there won't be one big breakdown of the Amazon region, ecological breakdown, but that it will be more like a domino effect. We come at different points to the tipping point and go over it, and so you lose more and more precious ecosystems, and so that will affect more and more the whole. And that is something which is not new to indigenous peoples. The beauty of the connectedness of everything to really generate life, they know this very well from experience, but they also know from experience of living so much in the rainforest, you overstretch boundaries. You live at the expense of the other living beings. It will have dreadful consequences then also for you. And we can observe it already. While deforestation is already bad enough because it contributes to the loss of biodiversity, and this biodiversity plays a tremendously important role in at least deaccelerating climate change. And now we also, and the indigenous peoples affected by this deforestation, which they do not do, have to live with the fact that the earth impoverishes more and more in the rainforest. And that is what David Lapola, another researcher very much in solidarity with indigenous peoples, says is a warning. Degradation affects the forest ecosystem services in a more subtle way and over a longer period of time than deforestation, because it transforms the forest from within by replacing species of flora and fauna. And that directly affects the life of the indigenous peoples, their livelihood, and also their food. And here you can see in the 20th century, till the end of the 20th century, on the left side, that was the whole part of the Amazon region, the green part, an extensive part. And there is the concern by researchers, when it continues, the rhythm, the velocity with which we affect it, in that what you see then on the right-hand side will be left from the Amazon in 2050. And it will be no longer a real rainforest. The major part will turn into savanna. And that, of course, indigenous peoples are aware of and very concerned about, because that affects their whole life and their whole relationship to the rainforest and the animals and the plants in the rainforest. Well, extractivism plays a strong, very strong role in this degradation of the earth. And indigenous communities are deeply affected by it. They receive those ones who stand up against big projects of exploiting oil, minerals, gold, often in an illegal way, are threatened. And many have been killed in Peru and in other parts of the Amazon. I say this because you will see then when we share about the cosmovision and the spirituality rooted in this cosmovision, that is the source of strength for people who feel threats and receive threats right now in many ways. And a type of extraction, says Eduardo Gudinas, what is extractivism? It is a type of extraction of natural resources in large volume, high intensity, and what is extracted is mainly meant for or oriented towards exportation. Exportation as unprocessed raw materials or with very minimal processing. And agribusiness, I think it is in English, is the main source of it. Deforestation for extensive monocultures, and that brings with it drastic changes in the use of the land. Indigenous people try to stand up against it because they feel that is a violence done to their land, where they have lived over so long time. Illegal, especially illegal exploitation of gold is a deep threat. It also divides whole indigenous communities because often those ones who do it offer money, money which is very rare. There is material poverty in the communities, and so they say, we pay, we make you share in the gain we get. And you see on the left-hand side, this type of ship with machinery, in Spanish we call it dragas, is tremendously damaging to the ecosystem because it removes the whole, turns it up and down the whole earth sand of the river in the depth, and so affects the whole ecosystem of the rivers to find few pieces of gold. And the gold is also gained in a way when persons do it with using mercury to separate the stone or the sand from the gold and then put it back into nature, and it is highly poisonous. So it affects nature, the other living beings, but it gets also back to the people who have not done it, because it gets often through the water systems into food and affects then very seriously the health, especially of children and young people, and is linked with a lot of violence. So this is a picture of a mother with her child from the Avahun. Yeah, you can see on the face the deep concern. How will our future be? And they have also said, when I have been with them and we have our sharings, that they really are strengthening their spiritual roots in order to keep up with a very threatening situation. And Pope Francis had listened on his visit to the Amazon part here in Peru very much to the indigenous peoples from Peru and from the other countries, because delegations came to meet the Pope, and he was very much touched by it visibly. And that is also something he took up then again in Querida Amazonia, his apostolic exhortation after the Amazonia Synod. And he said, from Amazonia arises the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And among the poor, the indigenous peoples are the poorest of the poor, because they're extremely vulnerable. and have less resources to defend themselves and their rights, and to care as they want for the earth. And also the Amazon Synod said very clearly in the final document, it is urgent to face the unlimited exploitation for our common home and its inhabitants. And the indigenous peoples who were part of the Amazon Synod brought in their voices, men and also especially women, and in a very strong way. They pointed out that is their spirituality, which gives them the strength to do it, instead of, though they get threats when they tell the truth, when they lift up their voices. So we want to see what is it, what is special in their cosmovision, which is the fundament of their spirituality. It goes together. I am always inspired by a description of Carlos Lenkersdorf. He himself has not been an indigenous, but he lived with indigenous communities, was also married to indigenous women in Mexico, and was an anthropologist very much in solidarity with indigenous peoples. And he said, cosmovision and the corresponding behavior cannot be separated from one another, because the cosmovision, the way how we view something in a deep way, is not just a matter of the head, mentality, or intellect, but it affects people as a whole, and thus also in their physicality and accordingly in their behavior. That's why we talk about cosmovivencia in Spanish. It's like, how to translate, it says living really the relationships which you perceive in your cosmovision, the relationships within the cosmos. So cosmovision is really a very integral way of living these relationships. And you can see beautifully the woman with her body painting, yeah, you live this relationship with your whole body, heart and mind, soul. It is an integral experience for them to feel connected to the other living beings in nature, to be part of the earth, to have your own place and your own role in this whole interconnected system of life, but you are part of it. You are not above it. It's also, I have been always inspired by it, though in the beginning you have to learn how they really understand it. For the indigenous peoples, the Abahun and the Wampis, but for several others equally. Not only we, as human beings, they would say, have souls for them and are persons. For them, persons, there's also personality, of course, not on the background of the Greek philosophy, but that you are a subject, that you have agency. A tree has it, a plant, another plant has it, a river has it, a hill has it, a stone has it. For them, there is no dead matter. Everything is filled with energy, and therefore everything is eind, is person, is something with agency, which we have to respect as such, as human beings. And that also many of the living beings possess what they call vakan, soul. So, and the soul makes it possible to have this dialogue, like the song, which we will hear later, of the woman to the water, is a conversation from soul to soul, they would say. The soul of the woman with the soul of the water. And they believe that, the other living beings are sensitive to it. We can communicate with them on a deep level. For example, when you are with Avahun or Wampis women, they have a big garden with different type of vegetables. When they, for example, plant yucca, they have beautiful songs when they sing to the seeds of the yucca, and they use images so that the sprouts of the yucca are little sons and daughters for them. They are included in their own family. So it's a close relationship. and you care. And one of the leaders, indigenous leaders whom I knew, Santiago Manuin, who has died a few years ago, he said the following: the rainforest, the waterfalls, rivers, animals, and plants are our brothers and sisters. Our people are living together with the forest. We should not damage him. And when we had our sharings, he said also, look, here in the town, you go into a pharmacy, you go into a supermarket. For us, the rainforest, when we care for the rainforest, is the place where we find food, where we find also the plants for caring for our health, for healing, for curing. So it is mutual and reciprocal relationship, he told me. We care for Earth and Earth cares for us. But you do not just take out of the nature from Earth, from animals, from plants, from water, without thinking first, where are limits? You know that also the other life wants to be there. So that they told me and taught me very much this reciprocal relationship, where you also have to honor the other living beings, for them as subjects. And the Chipivo, indigenous peoples in Peru, show it beautifully in their type of cloth. This is like when we would draw up a map of the world, that is their map of the world. And you can see everything is connected. Has different shapes, forms, but everything is connected. And so when this was said in the Amazon Synod, when it appeared again also in Querida Amazonia, we have to acknowledge this is not a knowledge which indigenous peoples just gained. It is a knowledge which they brought in and want us to learn it again, to learn how to live in a way that you deeply feel our life is interconnected in many ways, with life as a whole, with the life of the other living beings, life of the earth. And they don't have this hierarchical thinking that the human being or the human beings are more than. They think it in a different way. We have a special role, yes, but we have it in this whole web of life. And we need each other. This part was beautifully taken up in Laudato Si, when it is clearly said, we live in three fundamental relationships: relationship with God, with each other, and with the earth. And at the same time, it's not one first and then the others. And this interconnectedness and interdependence, which is so important in the spirituality of indigenous peoples, to learn how to live it in day by day, they care for it, practice it in what they call territory. What is territory? It's not just a geographical space. And often when there is the struggle because of extractivism, this is not at all taken into consideration by the enterprises and government people, because they come from other different cultural contexts. Territory for the indigenous peoples means the history of our people is inscribed in this space of earth. Our ancestors have lived there, are buried there. There is a history we share with them, which continues with us. Territory means it is a sacred space. It's a space where we since so long are encountering God, the divine, where the different protective spirits are living. For them, trees, animals, plants have protective spirits. And these spirits, like what we express abstractly in norms and taboos, they do it in a more symbolic and narrative way. the myth will talk about the role of the protective spirits to remind the human beings, limit your power. You do not have the right to exploit the other living beings. We are here for justice. So it is a way of bringing to awareness to the human beings not to overexploit. And it's clear that the human beings, in order to live, need to take some life from plants, from some animals, but to do it in the awareness that you take the necessary, but not more than you need, and that you deal with other living beings which also have dignity. So a very different approach. And the territory is also a place where the good life will come to it, what really good life means in indigenous understanding, where this takes place, where this is shaped as a certain way to live together among human beings and with the earth. Therefore, in the working document for the Synod for Amazonia, it was said the Amazon territory offers a vital teaching, because just when you walk there with the people, you will see how everything is interconnected in so many ways. And the one who has done a whole lot to work together with indigenous young people to collect myth so that they, with the time, are not getting lost, has been the Jesuit father Manuel Garcia. I knew him. I could for some time be with him in his work. And I learned a lot from him. And I learned from him because he helped to translate also, so that I could understand the indigenous peoples who only would speak Abahun or Wampis, not speak Spanish, the elderly who are just the ones who know the myth, for example. What are myths? They are like sacred stories for the indigenous peoples because they contain wisdom. They have different classes of myth. There are some myths, they are like to entertain children, but the fundamental, foundational myths, they are holy stories because they have to say something to the human beings. And they do it in a narrative way, in a metaphoric way. And normally, for a long time, that has been a custom that very early in the morning, and still there's families who are practicing it, when dawn is just beginning, you assemble in the family in the house, and you make a hot tea, and then somebody will tell a myth, and it is shared also with the children and the young people in the family, and the meaning it has is shared together. So with the question, what does this myth tell us today? In which way is it a light for us, for our situation now? How can it help us to understand what to do now, how to live now? And this is beautiful because it's like in community, you try to discover what this story means. And it is a light which you cannot produce. It is like given to you as a gift, and a wisdom as a gift to be received, but then also to be practiced. And yeah, here I have one myth. It is the myth of Etza and Achim. Before I start to tell you the story, please look here, this pipe. This pipe, the indigenous call pukuna. You might know it. How does it function? You have your arrows with which you hunt. You put them into this pipe, and then you blow and you point to the animals which you want to hunt. This is a way that you silently hunt, and it, as your breath, it is really something which is takes a lot of breath. Normally you come then also to a limit. You kill much less than when you use a weapon and you shoot in an indiscriminate way. So this myth is about Etzer. Etzer, who has been Etzer, he is we would say a figure, mythical figure, who has supernatural power. He has also been a friend of the human beings, has been enlightening the human beings. Therefore, his symbol is the sun. He is a male, not human, but divine being, is in solidarity with the human beings. And he also taught the human beings ethics of hunting. And but he had to learn it himself. The story is the following. Etzer, when he had the age to learn, as it is custom among the Abahun and Wampis, to learn how to hunt, his father prepared a pukuna pipe like this for Etzer. He started with a small one so that he would learn the technique, how to do it. And then Etzer, with instructions by his father, went for the first time to hunt. Etzer was a very good hunter. He knew how to point very well. He knew how to measure his breath so that the arrow would normally not fail to reach the bird he wanted to hunt. Birds are a specialty, one of the specialties for the Abahun from time to time, and they have them. So Etzer proudly brought the first results of his ability to be a good hunter and to manage very well the instrument, the technique. Then he asked his father, as he was just an adolescent boy, "Father, as I'm doing so well, please, I want to have a bigger pipe. I want to hunt more." And the father prepared him a bigger pipe, but reminded him of the rules for hunting of the Abahun. But Etzer, very proud of his abilities, very soon forgot about the rules. So when he was hunting in the forest, one day after the other, he just was so excited about the exit he had had that he did not notice, by hunting and hunting and hunting more and more and more, that less and less voices of the birds could be heard in the forest. And finally, he hunted what he thought was the last bird, because it was absolutely silent after this. After some time, he heard the voice of a dove called Yapanquam. She was up there in one of the high, sitting on the branches of one of the very high trees in the rainforest. So Etzer first could not locate her, and she told him, "Put down your pipe, otherwise I won't talk to you." So Etzer, who was wondering what this bird wanted to tell him, because the Abahun and Wampis believe that there are birds which bring a message, and it is necessary to listen to the message. He put down his pipe. And then the dove came down, and the dove told him, "Etzer, are you not aware that you have killed nearly every bird here in this beautiful forest? I'm the only one left alive." And when Etzer realized, with the help of Yapanquam, what he has done, he was shocked. He couldn't believe that he had reached this point. When Yapanquam saw that Etzer really was very deeply sorry about what he had done, she told him, "I give you another chance. Now, collect the feathers of the birds you have killed. Collect first the feathers of the birds which fly very high. So Etzer did, as Yapankwam told him. Then she said, put these feathers there in the pipe. And he did. And then she said, and now you blow with all the strength you have into your pipe and let it be a breath of life. And Etzer did. And so a transformation happened. Out of the sudden he saw that the feathers transformed into birds. Birds again alive who would fly very high. So Yapankwam told him, and now Etzer, you collect the feathers of the birds which are flying normally close to the earth, to the soil. He did what he was told to do. And again, she told him, now you are breathing your breath of life into the pipe. And he did. And now the feathers were transformed in the different species of birds which fly close to the earth. And with the time, the rainforest again was filled with the colors, the so beautiful colors of feathers of so different species of birds. And again, so many different sounds of the birds were heard. And Etzer went home and had learned his lesson. So I invite you for a moment to pause and just perceive what has touched me in this story, in this myth, which the Avahun and Vampis offer us to also gain insight. And what Etzer learned has also to do with an indigenous understanding is good life, and which is part of their spirituality, to learn what Avahun and Vampis call Tachimat Puhut. You have to do to be active for good life for all and with all. It has different names, as you can see here, in the different indigenous languages. And there are some small differences, but mainly there are the same big ideas, fundamental ideas. Buen vivir, as they call it, is always a buen convivir. It has always to do with a good living together with other human beings and the other living beings. And it is always also connected with a buen hacer, a good practice. You cannot have good life without a good practice. And good life for the indigenous has ethical connotations. You have to learn how to really strive for the common good and not only for the personal good. Key concepts of indigenous good life are respect for boundaries, as we have seen, reciprocity, and also the deep experience of them that there is not the separation as in the Western concept between nature and culture. Both are connected. There's also for them a culture of the elements we have to respect as human beings. There is mutuality, and it needs to be solidarity, not only among human beings, but also solidarity with the other living beings. And therefore, search for balance and harmony in all relationships. And it means also to acknowledge your own failures So communities often have their rights when it is like what we would call a sacrament of reconciliation. They will be able to, with rights and words, express what has affected their relationships and what needs to be healed and needs to be reconciled again in order to be in balance among themselves and with the other living beings, with the earth. And they have their own proposals and projects of life. The different peoples, as you can see on the left-hand side, Propuesta del Buen Vivir, proposal of good life, from the people, the Abahun and Wampis people, and they also put it to the government, say that means for us good life. And good life is also connected with to care for healthy relationships, healthy relationship also to earth, and to maintain also the sources for health, for example, the healing plants which are offered by the forest. Yes, for them it's important education, but also wisdom education, not only the education by books, but the education with myths, with wisdom passed on from generation to generation, and an economy, but an economy which is an economy respecting the earth, respecting the rainforest, to live with them and not just exploiting them. This is very much at stake because communities also experience that the culture of the towns, which is a culture of consumerism, a culture where you live at the expenses of what we call nature, of other people, is coming in. So the individualistic trends, and yes, it is a struggle in the communities how to teach the young people to live the values of good life with their spiritual fundament. And those leaders, men and women, who stand up for defending the territory in the name of their communities so that big extractivism projects cannot so easily proceed, do it by the strength of their cosmovision and their spirituality. And it's always looking for the good, not only for oneself, but for the wide community of life and for the younger generations, as you could see. So in a good life, in indigenous understanding, is not with a focus on accumulating material goods as much as you can, but with regard to good life, an important question is, and it is put to the individual again and again and to the community, the question of what gives really meaning to one's life in relationship to others and to the earth or territory. That is of vital importance. And there's also the dimension of gratuity. Solidarity, reciprocity, but also gratuity. Not everything needs to be work for payment. They don't want to be enslaved by very continuous rhythms of work, but they want also to have some time to just be and enjoy nature, to just be and enjoy company with others. For example, playing a football game together at night, the women coming together, chanting together, enjoying company with each other. So this dimension is very important, and you can see in this painting, which they themselves have made, good life has to do with all the elements of the earth. Without this, when we do not care for this, there is no good life. But it has also to do with looking how you can reach out to others. And it can also be then translated into different spaces, not only the rural spaces, but also the urban spaces. What does it mean there to have a good life in the sense of the indigenous peoples? And for good life is also important all what cares for communities, strengthening bonds with earth and with each other. And their sharing masato is a rite which is very important. It's a drink prepared by the root of the yucca, and it is you share life because you share your life stories. There are moments when you share this It's renewing the bonds of community, and it is sharing with each other stories of the daily life and of assuring the being interested in each other's lives and walking together. And another important dimension is really the sense of wonder, to not lose the sense of wonder for the different manifestations in life, wonder for the life, the beauty of life in the Amazon region. That is also taught to the young people. And that is also what has touched very much Pope Francis. Therefore, in Querida Amazonia, he says the following: we can learn from the original people to contemplate the Amazon region and not simply analyze it. We can love it, not simply use it, with the result that love can awaken a deep and sincere interest. Even more, we can feel intimately a part of it and not only defend it. And with this, I would like to first, if we could listen to the song. Esperanza, if you could help us with a part of the movie, has the title in Spanish, Sigo siendo, I continue to be, but to be alive, to be in connection with. And you will see this wise woman. She will tell, and I quickly read it to you in English, what will appear there in Spanish, what she is singing then in her own language. And the woman is saying, I have a dialogue with the water, so that the water will give me strength. She gives strength to us from the depth, so that we will have the energy of her body. She, the river, she says, has also immense trees. The river close to our place. And at the riverbank, one for a long time could see many big trees, as this one. She points out to the tree which is called Lupuna. And then she says, or sings, before going to another place, the eldest women of my community asked permission from the Lupuna. The Chona people, and she belongs to them, indigenous peoples, the Chona people live at the riverbanks. They have different routes. From one mother tree, they know several different trees are born, and they grow even in the water. Like this it was before. Now I don't see these trees anymore. Our ancestors respected them. The water will dry up. How will we stop this? Our ancestors asked. Therefore I sing. I'm traveling, connecting with the water, connecting. Like this it is. Like this I'm walking and I'm traveling in my boat, in this boat of stone. I'm traveling to move forward, going. And after having gone, I return to my land. I return to my land, I, the woman, traveling through the depths of water, in the anaconda. From within the river, I, the woman, who is enchanted by the anaconda. Like this, I sing to them, the water and the anaconda. I, who travel through the depth of the water, the woman who travels. I have been with the watchman of the water. And we have been coming to an agreement. I embrace the agreements. I have been in the heart of the anaconda. I have come to an agreement with the anaconda. The anaconda is also the animal who is linked with the shamanic work. the healing of the shaman. And so to travel in the water with the anaconda is also to be in alliance with the healing forces, also the healing forces for the water. Let's listen to her.
It's over.
Thank you. I just invite you to take a few moments in silence. What has touched me? What has touched my heart and mind just by watching, listening, watching the woman and listening to her? There is a struggle going on among the indigenous peoples. One side, you have divisions in several communities, because when enterprises come in with offers of money, that is a hard struggle. I have gone through it also with communities of Avahun and Wampis, because we have interrupted in a certain way their culture. We have left no time for them to adapt to different ways or to combine being subjects in this process, but it's just imposed on them. And so they have to pay for school, they have to pay for medicine, and it is very difficult to generate money. They have other richnesses, but to generate money, to find a stable income in the Amazon region is not easy. And then when the enterprises come, the extractive enterprises, there is an offer of money. Yeah, and for the experience of the people, it is a lot of money. Also, the young people are struggling when they go into the towns for study, because often school system was not very respectful of their cultures, the cultures of the indigenous peoples. We have experiences in Peru for an intercultural bilingual education, but it continues to be a struggle that the state is ready to invest in it and takes care of good preparation of teachers for it, so that you can help young people to appreciate their own culture and do not feel ashamed when they come to major towns in order to study in universities or institutes for higher education, what they often experience, that they are looked down upon because they are indigenous. And so there are also efforts, and there are some young people very creative in with different initiatives to help young people to appreciate from where they come and how much this wisdom knowledge is very valuable. And that is also what Pope Francis stressed so much, especially towards the young people, that they know the wisdom knowledge, how much it means when it is now the time to really care for the earth. And that's also part of our work as a church. They've approached Catholic Church in the confidence, for example, in the place where I'm working. They've asked the bishop to help so that they can struggle with the Ministry of Education, that they can have a different education in secondary school, which is much more integral, much more respectful of their own culture, and helps young people to have this appreciation for their own roots, combined with knowledge from other parts. Mm-hmm. And I think that needs to continue in order to, and it is also clear that in this educational process, we need to explore further, and some other places have had good experience with it. What are smaller projects? Because you cannot have major projects in the jungle, you just damage the ecosystem. But what are projects where you can earn income with, but not affecting the forest? So there are ways to work with what the forest offers and is needed in other places. And that, I think, needs more investment also from the government when it comes to transportation and other things, so that it becomes practical, but something necessary. And of course, these are also cultures with their own shadow sides they have to struggle with, when they are human beings as we are human beings. Mm-hmm. But I think the starting point is different. The way how they look at the place of the human beings in relationship to Earth is different from our Western way. The major cultures, also the smaller cultures, also have had this often, a much deeper link to Earth, to animals, to plants. So I think yes, to look at the whole, but also to honor your special place where you live. Therefore, thank you to Sister Mathilde. It's true, to discover the beauty in each place. In some places, it's more obvious. In other places, you need to take a deep look. But that also indigenous people have told and taught me how to develop this deeper look. Now they know how to contemplate, and which is, I think, in a very hectic culture, stressful culture, as we have it right now in Lima because of different factors. It's also healthy for us. It's healthy for the environment when we are a little more thoughtful of how do we treat other living beings. Also, Pachamama, you will hear Sister Patricia Ryan next time, I know her very well, is from the Indian culture. And that is one way of how they call it. In the Amazon region, they have less rights, but they have the rights they have. Really, you live it with heart, mind, and body very deeply. And like fire plays also an important role. Fire is enlightening, but you do it in community. And the singing, the chanting. There are beautiful religious songs where it is not just the text, but it is the melody, which helps you also to contemplate. And the fact that the woman sings to the water, or that many of the women sing to the plants and the vegetables, yucca, when they grow them, and it's poetic in their own language. It's poesy in the garden, which shows it's a different relationship. It's poesy, if it is poetic, it's like it comes from the heart, and it speaks to the heart. And I believe that we can also see in different ways in our daily living. How do we relate to water, for example, even when it comes out of the tap, that I can have water from the tap, but how precious water is. Perhaps it's only the little balcony in the room, the plant I have, but to also what helps me to connect to life, which is not human life. And so to get a little decentered from this anthropocentric, absolutely anthropocentric vision. Laudato Si talks about the despotic anthropocentrism, and I believe there is also a call for us to help that we overcome this, because it means we make our needs and the real needs and the also needs consumer society cultivates in us. We make this as the centerpiece. This is the priority over other needs of other living beings. And that I could see, though also indigenous peoples, because of different cultural influences, are struggling with it. But in their wisdom, there is something which also is there in our Christian faith, Christian spirituality, depending how we read for example, Psalms. Psalm 104 is a beautiful example of the wisdom tradition, which reminds us that God does not only care for us human beings, but cares also for the other life of animals, life of the whole earth. And that, I believe, is important for us now. And the indigenous peoples can inspire us to do our journey, faith journey, to be reminded also the value each living being has, independent of whether it is useful for us as human beings or not. It's like has its own right to be because God wants it to be. It's God's creation, it's not our creation. And a God, we believe in a God who loved the diversity of life. Critical reading of the first creation story also help us to see it was misused to the difficult verses to dominate the earth, that God gives us the right to do this unlimitedly was not at all the original meaning in Hebrew of the text. And so I think we have to do something as Christians to be critical of interpretations which those texts have suffered, to remind the whole wisdom tradition, which in the Bible, which is much more looking at life as a whole, and a God who cares for life as a whole and puts us in our place. So it is also modesty for the human being. And then the beautiful stories of the Old Testament, where animals are teaching something to human beings. We also have it in our tradition, but it was often forgotten. What helps us to really not instrumentalize continuously other beings, but to recover the sense of wonder, the sense of when we contemplate, it can be a little flower, it can be a tree, it can be a bird. It can be when we have, like in Dima, there is the seashore, to just stand there for a while, listen to it. It's watching and listening that we are touched by life, which is not human life, and to see that we are connected to this other life. And as the Maya people say, we are sons and daughters of the earth, and we need the earth. The earth needs us so that we care for it, but we are also dependent on the earth, and that we do not forget this. And so that means also where you have a sense of wonder, when you are something grateful of something, that also awakens the desire in your heart to care for it in a loving way. And I believe it is a high moment in this moment of history of humanity to help to recover these abilities, because we only need to look at our world, how many places are torn by conflicts, deep conflicts and wars. And when I see in the city of Lima, violence has increased in the past year tremendously. And we have the gangs who are able to kill persons because of extortion for very little money. A person can lose the life. So I think that calls really for, it goes together, as also Laudato Si stresses it. It goes together to care for the life of our brothers and sisters and to care for the life of the other living beings, because it comes from one heart, the deep respect for life, for wonder of life, for the preciousness of life, to have a loving look at life, a grateful look, and as you said in your sharing, to learn it, again, to recover it, to strengthen it, to nourish it. And yeah, I think the myth of Etzer also reminds us that Etzer was so much in front of his ability to use a technique which allowed him to really cause a whole disaster. And he has to use the same breath, which was the breath causing death. Animal, the dove, tells him what to do to undo the tremendous harm, like that the transformation happens. His breath turns into a breath which generates life again. And for me, it's a beautiful image. And how can we also inspire and help each other, to be people who strengthen breath of life, which we receive, share it with others, and breath of life is caring for life. To do it lovingly and from our Christian roots, gratefully, really gratefully to God, and reminding that, creation and salvation goes together. And I just want to end with this image. Give it a second. If it works, which an Avahun artist has made, and I think it puts it together. Is now the next one. Again, it gets stuck here. Yeah. Then I just say it. It means to be reminded that creation and salvation goes together. In Jesus, whole creation is taken into this loving way of God to bring life to fullness, our life and the life of the other living beings. And sometimes in Christianity, we have forgotten about it, that we are saved together with all of creation, because God, as it is said in the Book of Wisdom, is a lover of life, a friend of life. And so, that we experience it and that we try also to live it. We are co-creatures, as in my home country, theologians, men and women, have stressed so much to recover the memory. We are co-created with the other living beings. We have in common with them that we all are created thanks to the loving action of God, through the loving life breath of God. And therefore, there is a bond of solidarity and a call to live in solidarity with the other living beings, human beings and other living beings. And that this is today really to honor God in a deep way as a God of life for all.